From the News Channel 5 Network, this is MorningLine.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine. Nick Barris here. An important show today. As you know, today, of course, is Thursday. We usually do open phones, but we ended up doing that yesterday, and we had a lot of calls. Thank you for all of that. And this morning, we're going to shift gears a bit, and we're going to be talking about what we see happening at the federal level with regard to some executive orders that Donald Trump now living up to what he said he would do during the campaign, for better or for worse, however you happen to feel about it. But yesterday, signing some executive orders signaling the beginning of the process toward, pursuing that wall between Mexico and the U.S. Also, addressing the issue of undocumented immigrants and beefing up border patrols, sanctuary cities, all of that coming into play with these orders, and we'll see where things go from there. And this morning, we're going to take your phone calls if you want to join in the conversation on this. We'll get the number up in just a moment. But to talk about this, we have an individual who has a specific point of view on this, who's been dealing with these types of issues for decades here in the city of Nashville. And, let's introduce him to you now. Attorney at law, Elliot Osment. Good morning to you, sir.
Thank you, Nick. It's great to be with you.
Nice to have you on. I haven't seen you face-to-face in a while, but we've done a lot of stories over the years. And before we get into the details of this, I think a lot of viewers may recognize and know who you are because you're certainly have been in the middle of some big cases, and you're a go-to person sometimes on these immigration issues. But your practice, how would you describe your legal practice?
My practice is an immigration law practice.
Okay.
But that has several facets. It deals with people that want to become legal immigrants. Mm-hmm. It deals with people that might want to come in as a refugee or an asylee. Mm-hmm. It deals with people that are put into immigration court. It deals with people that want to become a citizen after they've been a legal permanent resident for several years. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it involves federal court litigation involving immigrants and immigration issues. So we cover all of that.
Okay, so you've been doing it for a long time. You've seen what's happened in D.C. now. We have a new president, and the climate, as it's changing, and I think most would agree it is with some of these executive orders. What's the mood you feel? And many of your clients, of course, are Hispanic, and the group you're talking about. Right now, are people afraid?
Afraid is putting it lightly. They're terrified because of the uncertainty of it all. They've heard talk during the campaign that made them fear the election of Donald Trump, and now they're terrified. And we're talking about people that have not committed any crimes other than perhaps being stopped and then given a citation for driving without a license. Mm-hmm. And so when they hear Donald Trump talking, or President Trump talking about crimes and criminals, what does that mean? What does that include? Does it include driving without a license? Mm-hmm. If so, then virtually all the immigrants that have been here driving without a license would have reason to fear. Mm-hmm. So President Trump has wasted no time in satisfying his base of people that wanted strict immigration enforcement and building a wall, but he has dithered on clarifying exactly what he's going to do with people like DACA kids and their parents. Mm-hmm. And so as a result of that uncertainty, they're terrified.
Yeah, they just don't know right now.
Exactly.
And we're going to learn in the days and months to come on all of this.
Hopefully.
If you would, and again, some may say, all right, you talk about committing crimes. Now, it may be civil, but they're going to say some of these folks that perhaps are stopped for a traffic ticket, like you say, it would be determined that perhaps they're here and they're not documented. All right. And that would you say, is that a civil offense?
Being here undocumented is a civil offense. Okay. Entering the country illegally is a federal misdemeanor.
Okay.
Now, entering the country illegally after you've been deported or removed is a felony.
Gotcha. So, under these circumstances, with this, you talk about what Donald Trump made this, a cornerstone of his campaign.
Yes, he did.
Of course, and he's following through on it, and a lot of people are expecting it. What rights do some of your clients have, in your opinion, as they come into this country, perhaps, and they're undocumented, and they run into this? What kind of challenges will you be able to have? What kind of rights does someone have if they come here illegally?
Well, they have constitutional rights under our U.S. Constitution. That was decided a long time ago in a case called Plyler v. Doe. And that opinion was written by Justice William Brennan, one of my heroes, who was appointed by President Eisenhower, who was a Republican. And what he said was that there were certain constitutional rights that everybody has in this country.
The moment you set foot on this soil.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter where you come from, which, yeah, you're protected.
This is holy ground as far as the Constitution is concerned. Now, specifically, that has been applied, especially in the Fourth Amendment arena. Even Justice Scalia, as conservative as he was a staunch advocate of Fourth Amendment protections for everybody, no matter who you were. What is the Fourth Amendment? The Fourth Amendment is a constitutional guarantee against unreasonable and unwarranted searches and seizures. And there's been a lot of litigation, even locally here in Nashville, when ICE agents and other law enforcement personnel entered apartments and dwellings without a warrant and without permission. And we have clearly established that here in Middle Tennessee. And as a result of that, we haven't seen hardly any home raids here in Middle Tennessee that I'm aware of. We have a very good local ICE office so far that has behaved, has learned the lessons that the Constitution teaches us, and they don't push the limits like they were once wont to do.
And do you fear then that that could change now?
Well, I hope not.
Well, wouldn't you think? I mean, come on, with what we see, I mean, what do you see on the horizon?
Well, I see on the horizon the appointment of Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, and that frightens even me because that man has demonstrated a total lack of regard for the constitutional rights of minorities in this country for years and years. And the Attorney General in this country, most people are not aware, has a lot of unlimited power over immigration law. The Board of Immigration Review, our Board of Immigration Appeals, is the review body that reviews all the decisions of immigration judges across the country. That is housed inside the Department of Justice. And the Attorney General has the right and the power, and it's been used before, to clean out the Board of Immigration Appeals, appoint all new people, and the Attorney General has the power to overrule any decision that even his members arrive at that he doesn't like. And so that's what I fear the most. And we'll just have to see what happens.
Got a lot more ground to cover. Before we take our first break, let's take a call from Peter. And again, we have the phone lines open, 737-7587. And I know a lot of you have strong opinions on this issue one way or the other. You're invited to join in the conversation. This morning, clearly Elliot here has a point of view and where he comes from, and he's well known in the community for it. And it's your chance to put some questions to him. Let's go to Peter. Peter, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Nick.
Hi, Peter.
You know, I've been watching your show for a long time, and I notice you mostly have the liberal point of view when it comes to illegal immigrants. You know, I think, you know, we always hear how these laws and presidents affect them, but we never talk about how it affects American citizens. You know, that lawyer was saying earlier that they haven't broken any laws other than maybe driving without a license. The first law they broke was coming into this country illegally. And I think we need to think about how this affects American citizens. The billions of dollars that are sent back to the South American countries, Central American and Mexico, you know, that affects our economy. I don't think we're in any kind of financial condition to allow people to come into this country except through the legal means. And I think most Americans, as demonstrated by this election, feel the same way. And, you know, I'm really glad that Trump's going to crack down on the sanctuary cities. I think it's about time that everyone follow the federal law. Whether if you don't agree with the law, we were told this back in the Vietnam days, and change the law. It's not your right to defy the law. And they come here, and I've seen them on a lot of talk shows where they talk about their rights. They have a right to come to this country. There should be no borders. Mexico has very stringent laws concerning illegal immigration. So, in fact, it's a felony in Mexico. And they allow very few refugees into their country, a minuscule amount. So, I'd just like to make that point. I think maybe you should have a show where you have a leader of one of the anti-immigration groups on and let him discuss some of the facts involved. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you for your call. And we've had on both sides of this the issue, and the reason we're having Elliot on, and he's right, we will have others. I disagree with him that we say we only have the liberal side on it. In fact, he's wrong on that. But as far as Elliot today, there's no question about what his point of view is, but one reason we're having him is that we've seen so much that's happened already at the executive level with the president just a few days in, and he's going to be on the front lines challenging a lot of this, and that's why I wanted to hear his take at this point and how he's going to go about doing that. Before we go to the break, Peter brought up some good points, and a lot of people see things his way, and that's one reason Donald Trump right now is, I think, our president. I mean, you find what he said accurate? Where do you differ with him? I mean, he covered a lot of points. Just choose some.
Let's start with one point that I agree with him on, and that is, I agree with him that nobody has a right to come to this country, and nobody that I know has ever asserted that. Once they get into this country, however, they do have certain rights. And part of those rights is due process. And so President Trump, whatever he does, is going to run headlong into the process that must be respected, charging people, putting them into immigration court, and respecting their right to assert a defense. The law is the law. And I agree with Peter on that. Mm-hmm. And no one has a right to violate the law. Now, Peter might be interested in knowing that right now, more people are violating immigration law by overstaying their visas than are crossing the border illegally. That's a little known fact, but it's been true now for a couple of years.
It's true, too, that things have tapered off in terms of the immigration coming from Mexico. Actually, dating back to 2009, it continues to go down.
That's correct.
And we have more immigration, according to the Pew Institute. Again, these days, when people throw out numbers, everyone wonders, are they real, are they lies, what? All I can do is the Pew organization that looks at this says a lot of the immigration, I think, is coming from other countries right now.
That's correct.
And Mexico still has some coming here, but it's tapered off, and it's been tapering down since 2009. But go on.
The border has been sealed tighter than a drum now for about 2 to 2.5 years.
So you're saying they can't just come across?
They can't just come across.
Well, is the wall needed?
No, it's not needed. And if callers have questions about why I say that, I'll be glad to furnish my rationale for that. There is no need for this border wall. This is a total waste of money. Now, there are many people crossing the border, but they're not from Mexico. They are from 3 Central American countries: Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador. And the reason they're coming from those countries through Mexico up to the U.S. border is because they're fleeing for their lives. Yeah. Most of these people are women and children.
You're saying political refugees?
Yes, they're not called refugees because there's no good mechanism in place in those countries to certify them as refugees before they get to our border. However, they are in every respect, many of them are in every respect a refugee in the legal sense of the word. They're fleeing persecution for their lives. And it's because the governments in those countries don't protect their own citizens, and so they have to come to some place where those where their lives can be protected. And for years and years, for generations, the United States has been that country.
All right, hang tight on that. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to take more phone calls. The lines are open, 737-7587. And he did bring up the topic of sanctuary cities as well, which is something that Donald Trump, too, is now saying under executive order that, sanctuary cities that continue to do this could lose federal funding. And he's going on that, and I think he's also putting a moratorium, at least temporarily, on the ability of refugees, whatever they may be fleeing, from coming into the country, at least for the time being. And we'll get into that, his thoughts. Elliot Osmond, who has a clear point of view on this, and we welcome your thoughts and opinions and questions for him right after this. Stay with us.